Hello, good morning. My name's Michael. This is Robert, who has a question about some sage here. We're doing this video for people who want to know how we harvest sage. We have a handout that Robert has, and that handout we pass out in the store to people interested, wildcrafters who gather sage for us every year. And it's just about that time, so we thought this year we would really try hard to let you know.
Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll go over, so like you mentioned before, we do have a layout that you are able to pick up in our Sioux Trading Post. What it does is it basically outlines kind of the guidelines of what the Sioux Trading Post employers kind of require of, sage harvesting from the people, from families and, people that harvest it every year. So we'll just kind of go over all of that. And so I guess we'll start off, Michael, maybe you can kind of tell us, when does the official season start for harvesting sage? When can people expect it?
It starts in June, generally. It totally depends on the weather, the amount of rain, the heat. Last year, we had a lot of moisture, and then we had suddenly intense heat, and then everything bolted and went to seed really early. It's hard to have sage that's too seedy. As you can see here, this is seedier at the top, or maybe this one is seedier at the top, right here, and they just start to thin out as they get seedy.
Sure.
And that is not a desirable. Basically, this is a pretty good bunch. Has a really good ratio of stem and leaves. It's just a good solid bundle. We like them tied up about like this.
Sure.
If there's too many, this right here, what is a big no. That's just too many stems.
Yeah.
It's
a little bit too bare.
Right.
Yeah.
And as it does seed out, the leaves start to fall off. So obviously we like it before it starts to seed.
Sure. Okay, and so starting, in June, when it's kind of the peak of the season, people can start harvesting.
Into July even.
Yeah, so can you kind of explain to us, it says here, when it's being harvested, we expect it to be harvested by the use of cutting and not pulling the roots.
Right.
And so can you kind of explain to us
if you cut it, and there were some roots here on this one, some few roots.
Sure.
And we really don't want roots on the plant. We want you to leave the roots so that there can be something for the plant to grow back from.
Yeah.
And when you do harvest it, it needs to be cleaned, free of any other grasses, sticks, any other plant material, and trimmed. This would probably need to be trimmed from about here. Otherwise, this is a fairly good bundle, and tied up in a nice, so you can lift it.
Yeah. And then with this, you can just tell. I mean, with the darker, color, and then you can tell it's been straight from the ground.
Right.
It's pulled from there. I think that's kind of a good indicator.
And you see how there's some ends laying up here and ends down here.
Yeah.
No. You've got to have all the ends on one end and the tops on the other. That just makes it better.
Okay. And so what we'll do is, we kind of gone over what is kind of a good length. When you go to harvest the sage, this is considered, I would imagine this is considered a fairly good length.
This would be a good length out here. Because generally it's going to start to seed out. It'll start to seed out when it gets. It just depends on the patch. I've seen some like 4-foot sage even. But you do have to trim the stems.
Yeah. But I imagine it also depends on the weather as well, as with any organic material,
right.
I assume.
Just really leafy, full leafy, like here's I'm jumping the gun here slightly, sorry. This is wonderful leafy sage, perfect sage, man sage, Artemisia ludoviciana, too short. We would need them longer than this. And this is a real good example of how it starts to thin out after it seeds.
Sure.
And the leaves are starting to fall off because the energy is going into the seeds.
Yeah. And so the previous words that you mentioned before, so Artemisia ludoviciana, can you kind of explain just for people
that's the Latin name of the plant.
Perfect.
There's a subspecies of that plant that people also use for smudging around here, and some people like that better. The leaves are smaller and sharper, and it's really the same plant. The trouble with that plant is that when the leaves dry, when that leaves, when that plant dries and is wildcrafted, the leaves completely fall off, and we're left with a handful of sticks, which we cannot use.
And then the other term that you also mentioned, between man sage. Can you kind of explain to people the difference? Is there a woman sage as well as a man sage?
It's a real ferny little plant. It's a low, rounded little plant that they call woman sage, and that is another one. When it dries, we tried to retail that in the store, and we were left with like twigs because once again the leaves just completely dry up and fall off. Woman sage is best used fresh.
Okay, sure. And then with that as well, we mentioned before when harvesting the sage and everything, the process of it seeding out and it gets narrowed. Is there a difference? Do man and woman sage both seed out? I mean, what can they look for? Do they both do it? Does one not do it? Is that kind of when you're on the look for people that can understand?
They both. They both do. Yeah.
So it's just a term to kind of help define what kind of sage we're looking for. Okay.
Right.
Perfect.
The woman sage is it's an Artemisia, but it's not Artemisia ludoviciana. It's a different one. Then this is not like big sage or sagebrush. This is more of a forb, I guess is the correct term, and it's it can be a very tall plant, or pretty short.
Yeah.
But that's the one plant. It's the wider leaves and the color, and it's got a bit of I hate to say a sweeter smell, but the smell is not as sharp as that other subspecies of this that we do not purchase.
Okay. And then I guess what we'll do is we'll kind of move on. So we've kind of laid out all of the parameters for harvesting sage, what they